Christopher Gist was an accomplished colonial British explorer, surveyor, and frontiersman, right? Daniel Boone's a British person, just like George Washington, right? They all started out by being British. They're better than everybody, murdering all the Native Americans willy-nilly. And then they start turning on each other. Then you have a big white civil war, right? A world war is really just a big white civil war. That's what world wars are. Only when Europe is engaged, right? Then it's a world war. But you can pillage and rape Africa all the time. Not a world war. You could go ahead and murder all the fucking natives. Not world wars. But yes, these are world wars. Probably about 4 world wars happened before the American Revolution, right here in America, right? You have King George's War, Queen Anne's War, King William's War. Yeah, so just those 3 wars. Do you even know anything about them? So the Pequot War, and then let's see, another big one, Pequot War, and King Philip's War. So you got King Philip's War, you got Queen Anne, King George, King William, King Philip, which is actually King Metacom, or Metacomet. Actually, I like Metacomets, okay? I've become better, more accustomed. Metacomet, so you got Chief Metacomet of the Wampanoags, who would actually give, you know, the Puritans, you know, the food and shit that helped them fucking survive through that first winter that we celebrate supposedly Thanksgiving is. No, we don't give a shit about the Wampanoags. We didn't give a shit about Squanto. We didn't give a shit. No, 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 no. Native Americans give us food. We took the food, then we stabbed them and took their women and children, or killed them too, and then took their land, their horses, their cows, and every fucking thing that they had, their silvers and gold. And if they had any books or any cloths or anything left over, we set it on fire so nobody would ever know anything about them, right? That's what we did in Mexico, or that's what white people did in Mexico under Cortez. Cortez didn't just fucking burn the Aztecs down to the ground, or the Mayans. The Aztecs or the Mayans. God, I gotta get this right. So the Aztecs and the Mayans, they're like right there. Anyways, Cortez, he burns down, right, and fucking destroys it in civilization. But not only does he kill everybody, he burns the fucking books, right? So it's sort of, today, you have historians today that just ignore the fucking genocide and pretend that it didn't happen. So what's worse? When you burn books, you know that he's destroying information and that there's shit that you don't know. When people write books and pretend that they know shit and they assert something that's not true, and it becomes institutionalized. Harrison Clotter in fucking New History, Kentucky, they said there's no Native Americans here. God, there's so many fucking Native Americans here. It's bullshit. So, which is worse? To outright censor people and burn all the fucking books, or to carry on into posterity a bunch of fucking lies and a bunch of bullshit? So Christopher Gist, he's a colonial British explorer, surveyor, frontiersman. He's the first white explorers of the Ohio country, the present-day states of Ohio, eastern Indiana, western Pennsylvania, northwestern West Virginia. He's credited with providing the first detailed description of the Ohio country to Great Britain and her colonists. At the onset of the French and Indian War, Christopher Gist accompanied Colonel George Washington on missions into this wilderness and saved Washington's life on 2 separate occasions. So I heard actually George Washington never set foot in Kentucky. So when did he go? Did he ever go into the Ohio? Did he ever go into Kentucky? George Washington never set foot in this fucking state. I've never read anything about it. When George Washington came to Kentucky, he didn't give a fuck about this state. So Christopher Gist is just, he's basically a fucking, you know, he's a stooge for George Washington, and went around Kentucky doing all these fucking exploring things, and so his books and shit's really fucking important. He, 1750, settled in northern North Carolina near the Yadkin River. One of his neighbors was the noted frontiersman Daniel Boone. The Ohio Company chose Christopher Gist to explore the country of the Ohio River as far as the present-day Louisville, Kentucky. Endear himself to Native Americans along the way that winter, Christopher Gist mapped the Ohio countryside between the Lenape village of Shenandoahstown near the present-day Pittsburgh to the Great Miami River in present-day western Ohio. Christopher Gist was warmly received at Pickawillany when he arrived in February 1751 and cemented the alliance between the Old Britain and English interest against expanded French interest. From there he crossed into Kentucky, accompanied by a black servant, returned to his home along the Yadkin. Right? English, white Anglo-Protestant, murdering Native Americans, enslaving black people. Christopher Gist has a black person. They come into Kentucky. So Gist and his black buddy right? And his black men. Let's see. Christopher Gist warmly received at Pickawillinie, which is, where's Pickawillinie at, right? It's right across from where Kentucky is, but that's where he crosses into Kentucky. So and then he looks all around Kentucky and writes some shit, and then that's it. So that's Christopher Gist, right? So that's one of the, that's like one of the main fucking people that actually came into Kentucky. 1750, right? That's when he came into Kentucky. Schnappenstown, that's something interesting. So there was Schnappenstown, Delaware, but that's in Ohio. Then you also have another town, Pickawillinie. That's also in Ohio too. But 1751 is when Gist comes into America. Kentucky, sorry. My Kentucky nationalism and American nationalism always gets confused. So Thomas Walker was a distinguished physician and explorer from Virginia in the mid-18th century as part of an expedition to the region beyond the Allegheny Mountains in the unsettled area of British North America. Walker and fellow Virginian Indian agent explorer for Patrick Henry, legislator of the three-state surveyor of Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee, North Carolina borders, and later Revolutionary War general. So this is Thomas Walker, okay? Joseph Martin were some of the first colonialists to travel in this area. Martin's son, Revolutionary War officer Colonel William Martin, describes the naming of the area and river in a letter to historian Lyman Draper. A treaty with the Cherokees was held at Fort Chiswell in the New River, then a frontier. On the return of the chief's home, Dr. Thomas Walker, a gentleman of distinction, my father, General Joseph Martin, accompanied them. The Indians being guides, they passed through the place now called Cumberland Gap, where they discovered a fine spring. They still had a little rum remaining, and they drank to the health of the Duke of Cumberland. This gave rise to the name of Cumberland River and Cumberland Mountain. So Thomas Walker is the one that fucking renamed the Shawnee River and the Shawnee Mountain and the Shawnee Gap into the Cumberland River, Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Mountain, Cumberland Lake. It's a Shawnee fucking lake. It's a Shawnee Mountain. It's a Shawnee River. It was a Shawnee River. It's not the fucking Cumberland. You say Cumberland? Fuck you. I'm tired of these explorers and conquistadors putting their fucking name on shit that ain't theirs. Half the counties in Kentucky are named after Indian fucking murderers. Should we be celebrating fucking genocidal fucking maniacs that murdered lots of fucking people? Bloody fucking shirts. This is Andrew Jackson's on the $20 bill? Really? Trail of Tears? Remember how he fucking murdered all the Native Americans? Got one Native American to fight against the other ones? So the big fucking military genius, right? Prince William Augustus, the Duke of Cumberland, was a hero of the time. So, great Prince William of Augustus, the Duke of Cumberland. I have no idea why the Duke of Cumberland is so famous or why he matters so much. Two of Walker's sons, John and Francis Walker, became congressmen in the new United States. Walker explored Kentucky in 1751. So actually, Thomas Walker was here in Kentucky before Christopher Gist. Christopher Gist comes in a year later. So Thomas Walker is here in 1750. So we really know about Kentucky in the 1750 and 1751. And then Schipperkitski is wiped out in 54, around 54. So I feel like these motherfuckers should have came across some permanent settlements. They should have came across some Native Americans that were here in the bluegrass. To suggest that there were none, to suggest that there were zero. So he was part of the Loyal Land Company. You had Ohio Company, who had Christopher Gist, and then you had Thomas Walker, who was with the Loyal Land Company. Received a royal grant of 800,000 acres in what is now southeastern Kentucky, occupied by Native Americans. The company appointed Walker to lead an expedition to explore and survey the region. 1750, Walker was named head of the Loyal Land Company in 1752. He crossed the Cumberland Gap. Party built the first non-Indian house, a cabin in Kentucky, kept a daily journal of the trip. So he built the first house in Kentucky. That's fucking Thomas Walker. So you had the first settlement was Harrisburg, right? So James Harris, he was the first settlement, but the first motherfucker that built a house was Thomas Walker. First motherfucker in Kentucky that built a house in Kentucky was Thomas Walker. He's also credited as the first American discoverer and used coal found in Kentucky. So Thomas Walker found the coal. So I guess all the coal fields Thomas Walker's, right? Thomas Walker is influential in dealing with Indian affairs. He appointed to represent Virginia at the county of Fort Stanwix and Treaty of Lochaber. dealt with peace negotiations after the Battle of Point Pleasant in 1775. Walker served as a Virginia commissioner in negotiations with representatives of the Iroquois Six Nations in Pittsburgh as the colonies tried to engage them as allies against the British. He is credited as the first American to discover and use coal. So Thomas Walker, Christopher Gist, I really would love to get into their writings and find out what it is that they actually discovered about Kentucky, what's myth, because if you have these guys pointing out that there's Native Americans people, then that's just, Harrison and Clotter has no fucking standing whatsoever. I'm skeptical of them because they're part of the explorers, they're part of the land companies, right? So they have a vested interest in getting people into Kentucky so they can sell land and they can make some money in their land speculation schemes. That's who settled Kentucky, was a bunch of land speculators, okay? So a bunch of people that, corporations and Virginians and so state powers, imperialistic, royal governors and corporations, they want to come here and exploit Kentucky and make a shit ton of fucking money from it. It was land speculators. So how, I don't know. I don't trust them because they're English, because they're, you know, they have a point of view, a perspective, so they need to, you know, get Kentucky to look a certain way. Yeah, they need to know the truth and they need to know what's going on there, but at the same time, you know, and possibly they didn't cross the Native Americans. Kentucky's a big ass fucking place. I've never even been to fucking, I don't know, LaRue County, or I haven't been in, you know, basically 90 counties in this state. So, you know, just because one person traveled through Kentucky, they're not going to touch every part of the state. So it's possible that they actually didn't even cross any Native Americans. The guy who wrote the Daniel Boone book, The Frontiersman, the Great Daniel Boone or something, the Great State of Kentucky, Filson, John Filson, he wrote at the very back of it just a list of all the neighboring Indian tribes that were in the region. And I think actually that's really important fucking material that probably should be put into a document that's collected, right? All these Native American stories of Kentucky need to be collected. I think archaeologically we could find out whatever it is we can find out about these societies, but I think the history is going to give us a greater perspective of what had happened here in this state. And then from the history, you know, we can use the archaeological evidence, and then we could use the history and sort of connect and bridge the two. Of course that's true. Of course that's true. But I feel like the 14, 15, 16, 1700s Kentucky, we don't have much knowledge about what had actually happened. And in fact, we got a bunch of fucking bullshit lies. So I fucking just deleted those, and I probably shouldn't have. But it doesn't matter, because I'll revisit Christopher Gist and Thomas Walker again. Some other quick people, just worthy of noting. They said Duke of Cumberland was like this big-ass fucking great person. He's got a mustache and glasses. He looks like he might be okay as Royal Highness, sir. That's his style. He's really popular for some reason. Junior members of the British royal family. So they really like fucking Duke of Cumberland, fucking Ernest Augustus. He's why you're gonna go to Kentucky or Cumberland River, huh? You're going to Cumberland Lake because you love this Augustus. I've already forgot his last name. Augustus something, the Duke of Cumberland. It's weird. The title actually lives longer than the man, right? The Duke of Cumberland. I'm the Duke of Shawnee, okay? So I'm the Duke of the Shawnee. Duke of the Cumberland. Get the fuck out of here. Other notable people, yeah, Peter Chartier. He had actually, they said that he established the Skippakittiki, and then they fought with Iroquois and Chickasaw and had a smallpox epidemic, and then that's why they left in 1748. So they was only there for about, 4 years or so. But supposedly they're saying he established it. I don't know, I find that hard to believe. And then after establishing it, he just fucking takes off. I don't know, he was a, he was roving band or whatever, but I don't think he established it. I think it was already there. Maybe he made it bigger, but, and he was also running around with Blackhoof. So Peter Chartier, a white Native American, sort of like Simon Girty, was friends with Blackhoof. And Blackhoof, as we all know, is a Kentucky Native American, right? So know your Blackhoofs, know your Chief Pluggies, know every Native American that's ever set foot in Kentucky, okay? Because those are the coolest Native Americans ever. Puck Shinwa, Tecumseh's father, definitely was here. Probably Tecumseh too. So Tecumseh was probably born here. Blackhoof was born here. And a whole bunch of other 30 seconds. Let's see. So you got Joseph Coulon de Jumonville. You got Baron de Longueuil. Pierre Joseph Celeron de Blainville. And then that's it. So I got about 3 other Frenchmen that were white people that came into early Kentucky. And then that's it. That's sort of all the people that we have that came into Kentucky that might have encountered some Native Americans. So we have very little information about what actually happened with, historical information. So these white people, they're not really writing shit down very well.